In this video, we will learn about the effect hook, which allows us to perform the side effects in functional components. If you are familiar with class components, you will notice that the effect hook is very similar to component did mount and component did update. By using this effect hook, we tell the React component to do something after the component's initial render method. We'll launch Visual Studio Code and begin coding. We are using the same repository as in the previous videos. Here I am making a new folder called useEffect, and within that folder I am making a new file called counter.js. So in this counter component we will import the React, useEffect and useState from React. And then we will define the counter component with state variables, where count is one state with default value as 0, and message is the another state variable with default string value as initial message. Okay. Then we'll define the templates. So in the return statement, we'll add a div element, and inside that div element we'll include the button element. Okay. This button element updates the count value on the element's click event. Then we will add the paragraph tag, which helps us to know the count value on the screen. Finally, we will add one more button element to update the message value on element's click event. We are now ready to apply the effect hook. So, in order to use the effect hook, we must define it using useEffect keyword with open and close braces. And it accepts a callback method which will execute after every render method of the component. And we will include a console statement within the callback method, which will help us to detect the execution of effect hook. Then in app.js, we will refer this counter component and save our changes. Let's now start the application and head back to the browser. Back in the browser, we can able to see the templates defined in the counter component, right? Let me refresh the page again. The console statements for the initial component render are visible now. Am I right? If I update the count variable, then again we can able to see the console statements. This means the effect hook is executed, right? If I update the message variable, we can able to see the console statements again. This means the effect hook is called after the initial render as well as first state updates, which is comparable to the component did mount and component did update lifecycle methods in class component. Am I right? Now back in the VS Code, the effect hook accepts the second argument as an array of dependencies. So let's pass the empty array as second argument. Let's save the changes and return to the browser. As we can see in the browser, the console statements are logged only once after the component's initial render method, right? Even if I update the count variable, I can't able to see the console statements, right? Which is very similar to component did mount in class component. So, if you want to apply the side effects only once, that is after the initial render method, then we can use the empty dependency array as the second argument. Back in the VS Code, let's now add the count variable to the dependency array and save the changes. If you take a look at the browser, the console statement is printed on initial render as well as when the state of a count variable is updated, right? But we could not see the console statement if we update the state of message variable, right? Since we included the count variable in the dependency array, the effect hook is being executed for count state changes alone. Similarly, if we include the message variable instead of count variable, the effect hook will execute for the message variable state changes. If we include both the variables as dependencies, let's add count and message in the dependency array. Then the effect hook will be applied for both the state changes. Am I right? Let's look at it in the browser again. If I refresh the page, I can able to see the console statements for initial component render. Then, if I update the count variable, again the console statements are printed. Even if I update the message variable, I can able to see the console statements. Am I right? So, as a conclusion, I can say that the effect hook is a side effect method that allows us to manipulate the components based on the state changes, which is very similar to component did mount and component did update. Am I right? And there is one more thing I'd like to mention here. The dependencies in the effect hook can be anything, such as props variable or also state variable. Whatever we are including in the dependency array, so based on those changes, the effect hook will execute. Okay. I hope this video was helpful in understanding the effect hook, right? If you have any questions, please leave them in the comment section. I will definitely answer all your questions. Thank you for watching and I hope to see you again in the next video.